Please join with me as I review with you the key tenets and concepts of emerging industry analysis. Existing industry analysis is a traditional view that often gives us somewhat traditional results. Let's take a look at one framework for existing industry analysis. Let's take a look at a framework called Porter's 5 Forces of Industry Attractiveness. This framework asks us to look at a given industry and assess a multitude of factors to determine what's the nature of competitive rivalry. We look at the threat of new entrants to assess how easy it is or how difficult it is for a new competitor to enter the space. For you as a new business owner, you'd like it to be easy to get in. Then, once you're in, you'd like to be able to erect barriers to make it more difficult for others to get into that space. You also need to assess the bargaining power of buyers. Do buyers set the terms, or do you, as the supplier or the provider, set those terms? Think of it this way. If your product or service is commodity-based, the marketplace sets a pretty low price and therefore has bargaining power. If you're creating a very unique, novel, or highly specialized product or service, you often have the ability to charge more and therefore set a better price, better terms for your product or service. How easy is it for consumers, customers, to find substitutes to what you offer? If there are many variations available, then your level of competitive differentiation and competitive advantage is relatively low. Your goal is to raise that so that it's more difficult for competitors to compete directly with you or for consumers or customers to find substitutes. Then, how much power do the suppliers have? When you have a new company, oftentimes you're charged higher prices for your raw materials, goods, and services than when you are buying in bulk or can gain economies of scale. Similarly, if only one or two specialty suppliers provide the raw material that you might need, you're probably paying a premium for that because there are no alternatives. All of these factors come together and help us to assess the nature of competition in a given industry or space and how we may best set our level of competitive advantage and differentiation. Let's take a look now at a new method of analysis called emerging industry analysis. This new view is guaranteed to give us new results. The concept of blue ocean strategy developed from work done by W. Chan Kim and Renee Marburg. Quite simply, they suggest that there's two places where most companies compete, the red or the blue ocean, and they liken this to parts of the ocean where perhaps sharks feed. If sharks are feeding, there's usually a lot of other fish that have been killed for food, and the ocean is red with blood. In a blue ocean, things may be relatively calm, they may be turbulent, but there are different factors at work. Let's take a look at them. In a red ocean, you compete in an existing market space. In a blue ocean, your goal is to create a new aspect or point of the market that's relatively uncontested. In red ocean, it's all about beating the competition. In blue ocean, you want to be so far ahead of the competition or so far away from them that they're irrelevant. In a red ocean, you're looking at existing demand for products and services and trying to capture market share. In a blue ocean, your goal is to create a new level of demand and capture that. In red ocean, it's usually about making a value or cost trade-off. In a blue ocean, we want to break that. We want to either provide greater value at greater cost, lower value at lower cost. And finally, in red ocean, the whole system of activities are aligned with strategic choice of differentiation or lower cost. In the blue ocean, our goal is to align the system of activities to gain differentiation and low costs for us. Multitude of factors. Take a moment to digest this. We're going to walk through some slides that I think will help you see quite clearly how this is put into action. Somewhat similar to Porter's 5 forces, Blue Ocean Strategy asks us to look instead at 4 actions. They suggest what can you reduce that you currently do below given industry standards or norms. In other words, can you provide less and still have a competitive differentiation? What can you create that is new or different that has never been offered before? What can you raise above industry standards, therefore gaining competitive advantage by that differentiation and most likely being able to charge a higher price? And what can you eliminate, and thus eliminate costs, if things are simply taken for granted and really are no longer sources of value or competitive differentiation? This is how Blue Ocean Strategy helps us create a new value curve. One of the things that I suggest you do is use this simple grid, the eliminate, reduce, raise, and create grid. Use it with your new venture, your new initiative, your new business, or your existing business. Use it in a brainstorming session with your colleagues and teammates. See what you can come up with to craft your own new value creation a la Blue Ocean Strategy. We're now going to create and look at 2 strategy canvases. This is a tool that Blue Ocean Strategy asks us to do in order to understand both the current level of competition and the Blue Ocean value creation curve. Here is the strategy canvas for Southwest Airlines. Before you even go into this, what you need to understand is any business must first understand what are the factors that current competitors work on, in, and compete on. In other words, complete the Porter's 5 forces analysis. That will lead you to understanding a number of key components that are central to the industry. You'll see these noted along the bottom of our grid: price, meals, lounges, seating class choices, hub connectivity, friendly service, speed, and how frequent point-to-point departures are. Once you've completed this, you're then asked to look at a series of different competitors. What are the choices that they have? The average airline, for example, looks pretty much around the middle of this value creation curve with the exception of seating class choices. And note that they don't have frequent point-to-point departures. An alternative to air transportation, automobile, is pretty low on almost all the categories except you have frequent point-to-point departures because basically you're in control. Southwest Airlines came in and applied the grid that we talked about just a moment ago, the eliminate, reduce, raise, and create grid. And they said, what can we do without? What is it that customers will still use our service for if we can create value in a different arena? They dropped the price, they eliminated meals, they had no lounges, all seating was the same. They had no hubs. In fact, they operated primarily point to point. They offered very friendly service. They were quick, and the key differentiator, frequent point to point departures. Blue Ocean Strategy was one way that Southwest Airlines was able to create a new value creation curve. Here's another example. Let's take a look at Cirque du Soleil, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, as many of you might be familiar with the concept of a circus. In the United States of America, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus was the most well-known circus. It toured the country, and for many folks, myself included, if you went to this circus as a child with your family and then later as an adult took your own children, you largely saw the same acts. Smaller regional circuses, many of which came out of Eastern and Central Europe, offered a different level of value and a different level of entertainment, by and large though more similar than dissimilar to the Ringling Brothers model. Cirque du Soleil came in, and you can see how dramatically they broke the value curve and created a new value curve across a number of dimensions. They charged premium prices. They eliminated the costs of star performers, animals, and aisle concessions, and multiple show arenas. Instead, they offered fun and humor. They offered thrills and danger, but they offered unique venues. Their offering was theme-based. It was a refined watching environment, almost similar to going to a play or a dance performance. There were multiple productions, some running in the same city, and it was artistic and filled with music and dance. Here clearly we can see in the first two-thirds of this value curve how the traditional competitors pretty much stayed in the same competitive space, the red ocean. If you look at what Cirque du Soleil did, they walked away, or perhaps swam away from that red ocean, keeping only 1 or 2 points of similarity and competition, and instead created a new value curve around unique differentiators that to this day has made them one of the most successful touring entertainment companies. Now it's time to put this into action. It's time for creative thinking. I want you to think about what will be the future of your chosen opportunities industry, perhaps as far as 20 years out. Let's go through an exercise. You saw 2 examples of a strategy canvas, one for Southwest Airlines, one for the circus, Cirque du Soleil. Now it's time for you to create your own strategy canvas. The hash marks in red are meant to signify where you will reduce, raise, eliminate around the current factors, the Porter's 5 forces analysis, if you will, in your chosen industry. The blue hash marks are areas where you should come up with some blue ocean or new value creation. So think back again, review the two examples that we saw, and take some time to do the work and develop your own strategy canvas. I think you'll be surprised at what you find, and I'm pretty sure you'll find new areas of competitive advantage and differentiation. So the purpose of our presentation and much of our work in our course is to get you to think differently. Here's a quote from John Maynard Keyes. The book was called The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, and amazingly it was written in 1935. The difficulty lies not in new ideas, but in escaping from the old ones, which ramify, for those brought up as most of us have been, into every corner of our minds. Think back upon the work we've done in our course so far. Think back upon emerging industry analysis and the tenets we covered in this brief presentation, and challenge yourself to come up with new ideas so that you can escape from the ones that are holding you back from your best creative thinking, analysis, and acting.